had taken my bike, moved it into his booth, and was demoing his product on it. I'm not even joking.
No.
So if you wanted to see someone cause a scene, that would have been a good one to capture on camera.
Wow, I'm guessing you just went up there like very civilized and was
of course, you know
don't
me,
do this,
100%.
sir. Yeah, it's fine.
So fun. I almost went to jail that day.
Welcome to another episode of Modify with TrickFactory Customs. If this is your first time watching, we are a custom automotive shop located here in British Columbia, Canada. And we decided to start a podcast around talking about modified cars because that's what we do here. In this episode, it's going to be a little bit different. We actually have our first guest.
Call-in guest.
Call-in guest. So this is going to be pretty awesome. He's going to introduce himself. His name is Mark, but we're going to go into all of that first. But before we get started, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're watching this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or listening to it anywhere else you get your podcast from, just give it a 5-star rating so we can move up in podcast ratings and we will be recommended to a lot more enthusiasts and a new audience. So with that said, we are just going to dive straight in. So my name is Elvis.
Tim.
And Mark.
Yes. Awesome. And so for those of you that do not know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, I'm part of a team that puts together, for the lack of better terms, car shows, right? We've been doing it for a very long time and started off in Alberta, in Edmonton specifically, which is my hometown. And now we do run shows right across Canada from, I would like to say it's coast to coast. So we're in Vancouver in your neck of the woods all the way out to the Atlantic provinces in Halifax. So it's been a really good ride.
Well, that's awesome. Tim, what have you been up to this week?
Basically, my week is almost on this topic. We've been dealing with sponsors, dealing with parts acquisition, talking about different shows that we're going to go to. And part of that whole sponsorship is me sort of picking which shows that I'm going to go to.
Okay.
Where we're going to place all of our sort of efforts for the upcoming year. So that's more or less what I've been working on.
And what kind of like sponsors are you talking about?
I can make that easy for you. You just need to attend every driven across Canada.
It's on the list. Don't worry. We're coming.
Are we going to any driven shows this year then?
I think we'll probably do most of the West Coast ones, like our Western ones. So maybe as far as Saskatoon. I don't think we'll go East Coast because that's a long haul for us. But I think we'll reach out as far as we can.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah. So, I'd be thrilled to have TrickFactory at any of our shows. So if you'll come out as far as Saskatoon, you'll make a lot of people happy.
We've been locked down for so long that this year is kind of going to be our big coming out year again.
Oh.
You know what we have going on. So we got some pretty big things coming out that we want to get out and debut. But on the business side of it, it's always like a big thing for me, especially with the larger sponsors. They want to know exactly what you're doing and what they can expect. So that's mostly what I've been working on all week.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So in the office, just hating
sponsor. Yeah, it is also a part. I mean, some of it might not be super fun, but it's very necessary to get sponsors because it takes a lot to do, I think, what we do. Yeah. And it's not easy. So, and I'm sure you, Mark, have a lot to say about that before we like dive into the topic of whole. But did you want to add?
Well, yeah, I just listened to Mark's podcast, and I think your last guest spoke a lot about sponsorship and stuff. So that's a pretty good listen if you want to go back and listen to that, because it kind of gives some insight as to what they expect and then what we have to provide in order to fulfill our requirements and build those relationships. So it's a pretty good listen to that one. And then the other side of it is he interjected about the show side of it. So it all sort of plays together. Like they want to see that their parts are going to be seen and where they're going to be seen and what their return on investment is. So that's where the show side of it comes. So it's like they want magazine ads and show stuff. So I got to try to put it in front of as many people as I can to fulfill my requirements. So that's a big thing.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And like for people that don't know, Mark, you guys have a podcast too, right?
We do. It's not nearly as interesting as the TrickFactory.
I enjoy listening to it.
Yeah,
so.
I listened to some of it yesterday, and it was pretty good.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, we try to, Definitely we're not car builders ourselves, so the content's a little different, but it's more the aftermarket industry, general scene type issues. We have a great one coming up actually next week.
Any hint? Any spoilers?
Not really a spoiler, but I think it's top of mind for every enthusiast out there. Is this whole takeover phenomenon?
Oh,
right?
That's a good topic, actually.
Yeah. It is, and the guest we have coming on is the one of the original guys who started H2OI out on the East Coast. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's very passionate about where H2I unfortunately has now become, right? So it'll be a good listen. In fact, you're gonna get a very emotional response from this gentleman. He's put a lot like you guys. He's an OG in the market. He's been around for a very long time, and I will say without a doubt, my biggest business risk running these shows isn't the lack of interest, isn't sponsors, isn't even running the show. It's the whole takeover risk that comes with these events. Yeah, that's the one thing that can ruin any business, right?
The trickle down effect of it impacts us quite a bit too. We just recently did a podcast on stance and caused a bunch of stuff, and then we got criticized for being toxic in the industry. Because it's accept all builds, blah 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 blah. But beyond that, sort of on the same topic, is takeovers and how they impact my business. So I see how it would be a problem for you exactly in the moment, but for my customers, it's like they have ideas and things that they want to do, but they're always dialing it back because these takeovers have caused such a ruckus and put everybody on the radar that these guys don't want to do certain things to their cars because the cops now are fully, they're watching them. They're like, I don't want problems with the cops.
You guys of all people across Canada, maybe Winnipeg, right? We see it in all different markets, but Vancouver proper, probably has the most difficult enthusiast environment.
Oh,
right?
really? In the whole of Canada?
I would agree.
All of Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, all of Canada. If you get a ticket, I mean, you can get a ticket anywhere, right? Like we realize it's a risk all enthusiasts take when they modify their cars. We all accept that risk. Where I think you're challenged in the Vancouver market is that they put some real punitive rules around how you remedy the violation, right? Specifically, talking to the Vancouverites, the box ones, right, where you have to get your car recertified by a dealer. It's not good enough just to bring it to a very and almost, I would say, more qualified person in a mechanic, but you need to bring it to a dealer, and we know no dealer's going to sign off on anything aftermarket.
No.
With the
You're
risks
basically
involved,
taking
right?
it right back to stock at that point.
Yeah, you're selling a car. I mean, the Albertans love it because we probably got a good deal on some of your modified cars. But it is this whole. I was at SEMA, a couple months ago, and they didn't even come up as a topic, right? Everyone was just very excited to see all the new parts, but the biggest risk to everybody that in this whole industry is is regulation and the risks of the these takeovers and what they mean to enforcement, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Speaking of takeovers too, it's so cool that you guys are talking about it too. I think it's something people need to talk about more, of just how damaging takeovers can be. Because I don't know if you know Circle of Drift. It's another automotive podcast. They ended up talking a lot about takeovers and how not just how it's ruining the car community, but how it's also making it just hard for everyone else. Because some of these takeover kids, they're like, oh, it's too expensive to go to the track and all that. But when you start adding the cost is going to take to recertify your car, and like jail time if you get caught, and all these things, lawyer fees.
People are dying.
Yeah.
Like people are dying. There
yeah, because even the H2O
dumb activities.
Yeah,
right?
Even the H2OI one last year when one or two people got killed or something. That was very sad. So yeah,
Yeah.
but that's very interesting.
Yeah, and for us, like I say, there's so many customers wanting to dial projects back because of the attention that all that stuff kind of brings. So they're afraid
Yeah.
to drive their cars, especially here. Like there's guys that won't even go downtown. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, and that was the main reason why we got the hell out of downtown Vancouver, right?
Oh, you guys used to be in the downtown area?
yeah,
We used to be at the PNE, and we moved it, and we have a really great home in the form of Hard Rock Casino in Coquitlam, and it's been right down. You guys can walk there, really.
yeah. So our area where we are specifically is like it's RCMP. RCMP is a little bit more lenient with things. Like if you're not causing a ruckus, they tend to leave you alone.
Okay.
VPD almost has a zero tolerance policy. Like right at one point,
Yeah.
they were trying to ban even AMG cars.
What?
AMG, MTech,
Yeah.
like
Because they
right-
were too loud or
yeah.
something? Oh my
because
gosh.
those specific exhaust systems on those cars weren't federally tested. So it was like kind of a little loophole, like a
What?
low production number, so they slipped through the cracks. But they're trying to hold those cars to the same standard as the general production cars. So like it got
Yeah.
really wild for a while. And then basically I think what happened is one of the tipping points recently for us is a gentleman bought a brand new Porsche, and he basically made it maybe, I'd say probably about a kilometer from the dealership, got pulled over for a noise violation. He ended up taking it directly back to YSAC, having it tested in the same moment. But he happened to be like a pretty prominent lawyer. They put together a class action lawsuit, went after the city and won.
Oh my gosh.
So
wow.
But when you're a young kid, you don't have
don't have
opportunity
money,
like that.
no.
You don't have money like that. So
No.
it's like you can't fight it. Like even to jump a lawyer off on the most basic thing is going to cost more than your VI. So you just accept it and you take the hit and away you go. Whereas these guys have the means to actually put something together, and it's kind of toned things back just a little bit because it was getting really wild.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have anything and you're being pulled over.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to our main topic of selection, which is do's and don'ts, or I said it with my Nigerian accent. Do's and don'ts of car shows, what to do, what not to do. Because in the car show world, there's a lot of things that you see on you're like, oh my gosh, why did you just do that? What are you doing? No, stop. And there's also things that I think you should do as well, which are we've already talked about one or two of them already. But yeah, so just from your point of view, seeing all of this craziness, I want to hear your opinion as to like, and even yours, Tim, as to some do's
Yeah.
and don'ts at car shows. So who wants to start?
I can start. I think the biggest thing, but again, I sort of have a working knowledge of it. So what I see a lot of, even in me attending other people's shows,
Okay.
that will make me frustrated is the way people tend to be really, I don't want to sound like an asshole. People tend to be self-centered in what they're doing because 100% they're heavily invested in their project. This is a big deal for them. They've been up since 4 a.m. shining their car, blah, blah, blah. And then they're there and they're standing in line and they don't want to wait. So like dealing with the show staff is like everybody wants to be the star of the show. It's the same for my show, like the shows that I produce. Everybody wants that one-on-one with the boss. Like, here I am, I'm bringing my stuff. You better pay attention to me. But all it really takes is just a little bit of understanding that there's 200 of you. Like, we're working our way through. I want to give everybody the attention that they deserve. So even when I go to his show, I'm standing at the back of the line. Like, and a lot of times it's like, they'll see you like, hey, just give me a minute. You're like, yeah, 100%. Like, I'm in no rush. You know where to find me kind of thing. And then it's like, even just that alleviates so much of the pressure to the show staff. So like when I'm watching these things come together, it's like, I try to be as accommodating as possible. And like, hey, you want me here at this time? Okay, I'll do my absolute best to be there at that time. And then just working with them and trying to be a little bit more accommodating, because otherwise it's just, they get frustrated, you're going to get frustrated, and it'll just ruin the whole vibe for the day.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's probably the single biggest thing, is just being patient and being understanding that there's literally hundreds of people being addressed. Like, like you think about it, everybody wants to be the one, but
It's hard not to do. I feel like it's like just it's a human thing. It's like people,
100%.
everyone
Nobody
thinks
wants
about
to wait.
themselves. Exactly.
Absolutely.
nobody wants to wait. And
Yep.
it is a huge deal for some of these kids. Like, if you're working a normal job and you're putting every cent you got into this thing, and this is like your pride and joy, like I get it. Like, and you try not to be dismissive of that fact, but at the same time, it's like you're a part of a bigger machine today, and you need to find your place, and it'll go a lot smoother for you. So like I'll sit back and I'll be the last guy into some of these shows because I just let it sort of play out.
Bring that up. This guy's so relaxed. We almost forgot to roll this car in Cali.
Because I don't want to get involved in it either. I don't need the stress of it. It's like I'll just wait, no problem. I'll come in at the end. It's no big deal. So I'll either be the first guy there or the last guy there, because I don't want to add to the chaos. Like it's
thanks Tim. I echo that. You know, a lot of our team members are volunteers. Like they come out just because they want to help, right? And then they get yelled at because somebody had to stay in line for an extra couple minutes. Not a good experience for my team, but we try to keep ourselves organized as best we can. We're not perfect. There's delays that are our fault. We accept that, right? We try not to do it twice, right? Our very first year in Vancouver, we had an extremely long lineup, and it was awful. I felt bad for everybody, right? To get in, and that was our fault. We should have organized ourselves a little better. If we did it again, then you should definitely be angry at us. But I think we fixed a lot of the issues with that. But a little bit of patience certainly helps. We know it's intimidating when you come to a show and there's hundreds of vehicles, competitors like TrickFactory there that are like serious contenders. We like the fact that we're kind of like the Super Bowl, right? We're an important event. People care about our trophies. That's what we want them to want our trophies. So we're doing our best to keep everybody happy. But patience, 100% is on from the competitor side is really appreciated.
So a lot of people say at car shows, you see it a lot. It's like, don't touch other people's cars. So personally, when I go to a car show, I don't really mind if people touch my car or anything. Maybe that's because I have like boxes for the most part. They're not like valuable anyway, and I don't really mind. But I know a lot of people specifically say, don't touch my car, or it's almost like an underlying thing that people don't say. Some people choose to put posters and it's like, don't touch the car. But what do you guys think about that part?
I think there's levels to that, because I mean, in reality, if it's a car, like putting your hand on it, it's not the end of the world. Like it's, to me anyways, and I let little kids sit in the cars. Guys want to take pictures in the cars, it's fine. It's the only issue is like when it's gone, like this is a really big reason why I don't go to free car shows. Because if anybody can attend, that's when you're going to have problems with kids climbing on fenders and people laying across hoods, and like, because they're not at all aware of the etiquette at all. Like they're not car people. It's just a free event. It's something to do. So I don't attend those shows. And then whereas when you have a very like focused event like Driven, I would say probably 95% of the people understand that. Like you're always going to get the one that brings their 5-year-old kid that maybe this is your opportunity to educate him. Like, hey, don't touch that. Don't do this. Don't drag your Hot Wheels down the side of my car. But I mean, for the most part,
that's just sort of fatal liability. They just don't want to pay for somebody's paint job.
So I mean, it's not a good thing to do. It's the same as going into somebody's house. You're not going to go in their house and start opening their cupboard, touching everything. So why some people feel they can do it at car shows is like it's a weird.
I got a great story about this. I mean, I have so many stories because I'm afraid I'm old and jaded, I guess, from many years of doing this. But
you're not officially old until you put dates to it.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's why we don't celebrate any milestone dates for Driven, because it ages me. But we had in one show a couple models, right? They started, I guess, sprawling over an ex-con's hood.
Oh my God!
Just got out of jail, and he finally got his car back, brought it to Driven, and these models were, and I tell you, that was a scary moment. But yeah, models and kids are the ones we. That's why we don't have many models at Driven. So it's scary.
So like, what ended up happening? Like, was he mad? Was he
we had
mad?
to call security. Thankfully, the ex-con ended up being a really chill dude, but he wasn't happy. And I mean, nobody would be, even if you're a 100-pound model. Like, nobody wants you on top of your hood, right? Mm-hmm. So which is another thing why I scratch my head, because I see so many photos of people climbing on top of their cars with standing on.
I have a story.
Tim, you need a photo like that. You need a photo.
You should get one like that on Evo. Oh my gosh.
Evo.
People would be so mad.
Standing on it.
I have one story that in the early days of Hot Import Nights, way back in the day when it was downtown, I had a bike that I had put in there. They called me, asked me if they could put this bike by the door, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yep, no problem. Brought my bike down there, left it there. They had it stanchioned off. Everything was great. I came back, I think, on the Saturday just to take in the show actually myself. And I got there, and one of those sort of snake oil spray wax, like, this product can do everything, had taken my bike, moved it into his booth, and was demoing his product on it. I'm not even joking.
No.
So if you wanted to see someone cause a scene, that would have been a good one to capture on camera.
He just took your bike?
Yeah, he literally moved my bike into his booth because he had a booth very close to it, and it actually rolled it over there and was like spraying this slick shine all over it.
I would have paid money to see that.
Yeah,
I would have paid money.
It was
to see
not a
his
good
reaction.
scene. Yeah.
Wow, I'm guessing you just went up there like very civilized and was
of
like,
course, me,
don't do
100%.
this, sir. Yeah, it's fine.
So fun. I almost went to jail that day.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
So my only other mixed thing about that is I'm not a fan of people who stanchion off their cars, right? Like that's the one thing I like. I mean, I understand that you want to protect your vehicle, right? But stanchioning your cars just really makes it difficult for anybody to take photos, and people just want to take nice photos of cars, right? So
I think why people do that too is they don't want people scratching their cars, because
which makes sense.
When you get people shuffling between cars, sometimes their jeans and everything in their pocket sometimes gets on the car and scratches it and stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, you'll be fine. So
back to the whole judging thing, right? What makes me, I guess, remember I said what makes Mark Seto very angry really is when people try to justify their car needing an award over like comparing it to another's, right? So I didn't win my trophy, but I beat this person's car because my car has this, it's got this. That's not the way to approach it if you lose a trophy, right? And that I've seen that happen. I almost see it after each show, right? Like some guy goes online, he says, "I didn't win. This is the car that won. This is why my car's better," right? I mean,
just comparing.
Hey, maybe we made a mistake. I don't disagree, right? But it never pays to put down another vehicle's cars because you think yours is better. It's to me not the right way to approach it.
Yeah, that is very interesting for you to say, because I feel I have also seen that too in some shows, and I'm like, come on, you lost. Just go home. It's a car show. Just go home. It's an award, but it's not the end of your life.
Exactly.
Well, I think that comes down
and
to
we love. Don't get me wrong. We love when people like we're happy that people give a damn, because I've entered car shows where like I want something, but I didn't really care.
Oh, I see.
But there's shows where like Driven that people, and we realize that. So the due diligence is on us to make sure that there's fair judging in place, but it's not a pure science, right? It's still the eye of the beholder, right?
In the event that they're questioned, because I have an example that I can give you right now. So in the event that the judges are questioned based on a certain decision, will they give feedback? Like, will your judges give feedback?
Yeah, our judges always give feedback. Yeah, so we typically don't share the score sheets, right? But we can certainly say, hey, you scored very low on particular things. And in 90% of the cases, it's immediately they get it. But where they come back, and this is where again where Driven has perhaps failed, is we need to get more of the information of how, like, what's important to our judges. We need to get that in front of you guys before the event, right? And we can go into that in great detail.
Oh, you said before the event.
Yeah, before the event, we need to, like, the number one thing that, like, I think people miss is 12 volt, right? You'll see a lot of cars come in and they got this one of a kind body kit. It's race prepped or track prepped or whatever. But they don't have any, and then they get beat by a car that perhaps isn't of their taste, but it's got an immaculate sound system in it, right? Like that's part of the judging process, is that part of it. So that's just one example of many, of course, right? Detailing is an important one too. It's certainly something you can control, right? And I mean, maybe there's another podcast where we could get Mike, our head judge, to sit in on it, right? And he can go into great detail around judging. And you can really challenge him on it because he loves being challenged. Why? Because he's the type of guy that wants to be challenged so he can get better, right? So that would be a good one. But yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces that I think people don't understand. But I think this year we recognize that we need to get that information in front of people, right? So that when people come in, the worst scenario is some guy who's got this. I got the first body kit. First Voltex body kit.
Oh my gosh!
And it's a one of a kind, right? But it doesn't. It's not put on properly.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't fit, right? But it's super cool because it's the first one on a very special.
Oh my god!
One of one. Yeah, those guys are. It's tough to. Our judges. They look for consistency in the finish, right? And guys like you, it's easy to because you guys seen really bad stuff out there.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
But,
it has to be nice. Just being one of one is not enough.
It's easy to sit in the call with talking to guys like you, but if we ever get brought into a call with, like, there's some shops there that really focus on like really boutique-y JDM parts, right? It's really hard to explain to those guys the judging rules because they're so focused on the jewelry of things, right? Like, they're so focused on, like, I've got this 8,000 set one of one wheels. I deserve a trophy for that, right? Like, it's just.
Well, even I have a car here that was like a previous season car, and it's like, it's loaded down with JDM stuff, like all the stuff that everybody wants, and none of it fits that good. Like, it's terrible. I would redo the whole car.
No.
Wow.
But
absolutely.
You can't touch it because that's the way it came. And then, like, it's like these grail parts that are just like, by today's standards, are terrible. But these guys that are buying them now, and I have a customer currently that's like, there's so many better things available now, but they still are chasing these old school JDM parts, and they're just not great. Because at that time, those companies weren't big companies. They're fledgling companies making stuff just to get product out, and have since built into these, tremendous companies. Some of them are amazing, but the stuff at the time wasn't great. And then now, just because you have that, to think that you're going to beat somebody that's, spent a month fitting their kit and making it perfect, is like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's I don't understand the thought process behind it.
Yeah.
So I could see how that would be a huge struggle. Like, that would be a massive struggle.
And there are car shows out there. Like, I can think of a car show out there that just will purely award on a car because it's all got, the most authentic, most, like unique JDM parts on it.
There should almost be a class for that specifically.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
We could.
Yeah.
And that's very true. Maybe we come up with like some category, right? But I don't know. Having deep pockets helps, but it shouldn't be the only reason why you win, right?
Well, I mean, there's so many people that focus on that. It's like, who could buy the most and who can buy the best? To me, that doesn't, like, I've mentioned it before, like, those guys, I can go buy all the same stuff, do all the same things,
and have the same
exact same outcome. Like, I could literally clone your car. So to me, that's not interesting. Like, I can appreciate how awesome it is and the aesthetic, but I don't think necessarily that you should be expecting to win car shows. Because what have you done? You haven't done anything.
There's a lot, and I think it's maybe because I'm getting old, right? I don't know what it is. It seems to be the theme of this call, but I think it would help to realize, like, especially some of the young guys out there that have the really unique parts and authentic. I get it. Authentic is always the best, right? But just make sure it's installed properly, right? Like, make sure it's done properly. Make sure your paint is done. If you wrapped your car, your chances you're not going to win. It's it's tough, right? There's some fundamentals to what we look for that are going to be very consistent. And if your car was not put together and it's very evident, like it's an Instagram car, people. The best I heard was like, look at how many Instagram likes I get versus the guy that won. Like, oh, jeez.
That's how you set the bar.
Like,
these days.
Instagram,
one of our judges, and it's a bad term, right? But like he always describes a car when I say, hey, did that car win? And he'll describe it as it's an Instagram car, right? And what that means,
I call them
looks
lick and
great
stick
in
cars.
the photos.
That sounds gross. What is lick and stick?
I don't know where it came from, but there used to be something that you literally licked it and stuck it on. So I literally call them lick and stick cars. Like, when you can see double-sided tape poking out and wraps are peeling
double-sided
back,
tape. That's
all that kind of stuff. I was like, I almost
we have another one of our
dismiss it.
judges. He sees double-sided tape. Oh my gosh, you're not
it.
getting a trophy if you see it.
Also, it's funny you should say that too, because if you can't, like, for a lot of these Instagram cars, it's like mine included too, which I'm working on getting mine better. But if you stand from like 20 feet, it looks glorious, like for the picture. But once you come close, you're like, what in the world are we looking at here?
And what's your expectation, right? Because that's our judge's expectation. They're gonna come up close and they're gonna look at those details, right? They're not gonna open your hood. That's the other thing. We'll get into that, but that's another reason why a lot of people lose is, they close their hood or whatever. And our judges aren't gonna reach in, pop your hood to take a look at what's underneath it there, right? So there's certain things that really do kind of like drive us nuts.
And then and then adding to this, I don't know, tell me what you guys think about it, but not leaving the show until it's done. Because
I find that to be, in my events, like probably one of the most disrespectful things. More so even than being impatient on the front end. Like when I start seeing people start to move out at like 2:00 on a Sunday, I can guarantee you will not be attending my show again.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
That's it. You want to get blacklisted?
Wow.
That's how you do it.
No, I feel the same way. Unfortunately, I'm a bit of a softie. I don't.
But the craziest thing about
we try to educate them.
Our show specifically is whether or not these people know or not. Sunday is always our busiest day. In any of the events I've ever produced, Sunday is always our busiest day because that's pretty much almost everybody's off day.
And that's also the last day.
So those guys are only really, hurting themselves because they're missing half of that opportunity by trying to bounce out at 2:00 on a Sunday. Plus, we all have a schedule. We have a move-out schedule. So we have a plan in place. And when you guys start messing it up, it becomes a problem. So, like, I'll wait and just wait. Again, I'm the last guy out of the show. I'll wait till everybody's gone. I don't add to the chaos. Like, you should almost be, this should be part of your plan. Like, you need to plan your weekend almost to the same level as the promoters plan their weekend. Like, I got to do this. This is when I'm leaving, blah, 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 blah. And maybe you didn't get the result that you want, and then you just going to
bounce.
Dip. Like, and again, like talking about his judging sort of thing, like I've had the discussion with the judging before where it's like, if I disagree with the way things have gone, I actually have an incident with a judge where it's like, hey, why did this guy beat mine? Because I just came from this event. I was judged to this standard by this actual judging organization. So I just want to know. Like, I don't really care. I'm not looking to cause a ruckus here today. Like, your trophy, like, this was just a general show and shine. So having him do his part, and then he ended up actually after the fact because he didn't know necessarily what he was looking at. He didn't know all the process. He had just been put in that position. He went off and took judging training.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then came back, and then that was an improvement on the show. So, like, a lot of these things that it's like you're almost as big a part of the show's success as the show itself. Like, you're only going to make it as good as, what you make it essentially. And a lot of the times, like we discussed before this, is like where the show is and everything that has to do with it is what makes it is. So if you're going to go in with a bad attitude and cause a ruckus and you're going to dip out and cause chaos for these guys and all this kind of stuff, it's like, you know, maybe I'm a little more ruthless and you're not coming back. But it's like, I think a lot of these guys need to just participate a little bit more and try to make it better. You know what I mean? And like be there till the end and finish it out and participate on the other side of it. So that's just
the
my
guys
opinion,
especially when you're trying to give out an award and guys are starting their cars.
Yeah, see, like
you know, you're trying to give this award. So it's tough, right? We get that it's a long day. We get it. People want to go home, right? But you know, it is very disrespectful when like you're trying to hand these awards to people and guys are starting their cars and alarms are going off, right? So yeah, but thankfully we don't run into many of those issues. The big issues you run into are just dumb behavior post event when you're leaving, right? You know, that's a different topic.
Yeah. Ooh, speaking of which, when you're leaving, the behavior,
the rollout.
When you're leaving, because if you guys do not know, whenever a lot of people are leaving car shows, depending on which one it is, they like to either like just start like a rev battle or like a burnout thing or even like peel out and all of these things. And so what do you guys think about that? I think it's,
Oh my gosh. Boy, I don't want to get myself into trouble, but Toronto is always been a challenge, right? People love. I mean, I don't blame them. They want to see the cars move. They want to hear the engines, right? But what drives you nuts are guys who are like telling people to intentionally rev, and then the guys who just fall into that and they just start doing dumb things like two-stepping on the way out, right? It doesn't. Yeah, that's hard for us. So we've learned that we always have police there at the end of each show, to make sure that, like, you know, people don't. It's a safety issue at the end of the day, right? There have been events where people get hurt on the way out of shows, right? All the time, right? Especially when there's some Mustangs.
I know that.
Yeah,
I knew we had to.
You got to drop
Yeah,
Mustangs.
you knew what was coming up.
Yeah.
I just fell into that trap. Sorry,
Crowd
you know what?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is a safety issue, right? Is that we can't have guys trying to, you know, show off and do dumb things. It's almost like a mini takeover at that point.
Oh yeah.
So we just gotta. It is a big problem for us, and thankfully, most guys pay attention to the police. Montreal excluded, but we haven't had too many issues, but there are some cities where it is a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's good, because like we had, this was like a car show, and we used to have it in Nashville. It was a normal like cars and coffee, but it was like once a month, and like 1,200 cars would show up like every time. But the leaving part was always the most chaotic, because you have these little kids with their phone, and they're like, rev it, and then the guys are like, and then they start do a burnout, and they start a burnout. And so I remember this time when this kid was leaving, and he was like, oh, do a burnout, rev it. As he was doing whatever he was doing, he ended up just sliding and crashing into a sidewalk or something. And after that, the cops were like literally almost like in the distance watching everything, and they just came to him. And it was, I don't know, I feel bad, but it was so satisfying. I was like, like you almost feel the justice happening there.
Well, I've had actually the bike that's sitting behind you, I've been at a bike show where a guy did that, and I was filming, and he started doing a big burnout, and I was filming, and then he let the clutch out, and I was just like, or no, he pulled the clutch in. I can't remember which way around it was, but as soon as he did it, I was like, oh no. And then the thing took off. It hit the front of my bike. It hit Rob's bike, glanced across the lane, and then there's another fellow there that, it wasn't a great bike, but he'd worked on it all night. Thing like the paint was almost still wet. Smoked into that one and knocked over like another 6 or 8 bikes. So in total, I think we found out the total damage for everything was like $68,000.
Yeah. So
this particular guy, funny enough, was part of a very notorious sort of group of motorcycle riders, and he actually lost his membership because of that incident.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
just because he
Maybe he deserved it.
essentially
right?
he
Like,
embarrassed his particular
Yeah,
faction
yeah.
of people. But yeah,
You're
it's
really
just,
gonna embarrass yourself. Like we had an RX-7. Like just the videos on YouTube,
no.
right? Just I don't know how he spun out, but he did, and then he was so embarrassed he literally reversed his car away from the area just so that he wouldn't get caught on camera. But it made things even worse. But if you want to really damage your reputation, like that's
That's the way to
you
do
do
it.
That's the
because
way to-
people are ruthless. These kids will egg you on to do stupid things,
and then
and they
troll
want you
you
to
on the
do
back
stupid
end.
things.
Yep.
And then when you f- up, right, they're going to be the first guys to post
Post
how
it on Insta.
stupid
Yeah.
you are, right? So, yeah. So don't be that feeble-minded
Yeah.
guy,
Yep.
right? That falls into that trap. Like, don't be that feeble-minded,
Yeah.
right? So,
And speaking to you now about car shows, how did you start a car show even of your scale? Because right now you guys are literally all over the country. So how did you start something like that? And
yeah. I mean, it's without going to the whole business side of driven, right? Really, there's a market for these larger scale shows where we try to bring in more than just the local scene, right? So a lot of our content, like you guys will be in Edmonton and Calgary, right? We'll have cars from Calgary out to Vancouver, and I think we've created call it a marketing environment, right? So whether you're marketing yourself because you're your own brand, right, or you're showing off the work that you've done, or you're a business looking to promote your whatever business or products or services you're selling. We've been very successful in helping people achieve some of their business goals. So we treat it like a business. We're not out to throw a party, right? That's not our intent, and it's worked out well for us. We haven't the pendulum hasn't swung so far to the pure business side, like an auto show. We get all the enthusiasts out, and we try to put on something where we keep most of the people happy, right?
Yeah. You can't
And it's
keep
hard.
everyone
It is hard. It's we'll get into the politics of it, right? But we've been able to avoid a lot of the pitfalls of a very so it can be a very toxic scene. But at the end of the day, we've made more people happy than unhappy, right? There's a big target on my back. There's literally a bullseye on my back here right now.
I think that's
Right.
that's so interesting.
I think that's the disconnect
Yep.
that a lot of people have, is because I also plan events. So I can attest to the struggles that he probably has. Is a lot of times these people, even just by inviting them, it gives them an expectation. It's like, oh, I'm the guy. And then the other side of it is they think we're throwing them a party. And it's like, you're the star of the show. But in reality, it's a business, and I'm creating an environment and giving you opportunity to put your products before a new set of eyes.
Yeah.
So some people 100% get it. I understand it. That's why I attend. I'm not there to win trophies. I got lots of trophies. I'm there to try to give people opportunity to see what I do in a new market. Whereas a lot of these guys that are just showing it for clout to try to get trophies and all that kind of stuff, I think that's the disconnect that they have with some of these type of shows. Like, their expectations are, we're not there necessarily to celebrate you. We're there to give you opportunity. So that's the business side of it.
I love talking to Tim. I mean, Tim, you should brag, because Tim's a very serious promoter as well. For those who don't know, but I know all about Tim. We spent a lot of time trading some the pains, the good, bad, and ugly of the scene. But I think you really nailed it. If you start attending shows with this expectation that you're there to get the admiration of the public, right? And you're going to win a bunch of trophies and stuff. You're really setting yourself up for failure, right? I think that's the worst part about the show for me, is that there's a lot of ego involved, and everybody wants their little bit of it, right? We try to keep it a level playing field as best we can. We try to remove all the bias. I'm not a judge myself. It's a very church and state separation between the business side and the actual competition of driven. I'm not even the when I find out who, like I do the announcing at the end mostly because I want to thank a lot of people, so I might as well announce the winners. But that's when I see them who won, right? And we have a lot of checks and balances in place, and it's a continuous improvement effort. But I would say the worst part about running these shows is the judging. The judging side. I wish I ran a tattoo show. Do you judge at a tattoo show? Do they have people walking around their tattoos and they're
kind of the way that I've alleviated some of that is I do like peer-to-peer judging. So I'll pick like some of the the big boys in the industry and have them judge it. And so it's almost peer-to-peer, and then each progressive, because they're busy working, a lot of these guys too, so they're also working attendees, is I'll change it for each, like each guy will do a couple hour stint. And if I see somebody that's specifically competing in a class, I'll make sure that I have the best guy in that class judging his work. So I think some of the older OG artists, they don't need the ego part of it. They're there to sort of be with like-minded individuals. Kind of the way I approach a lot of car
they're there
shows.
to share.
Like I'm not there necessarily to win stuff. And a lot of times, I'm sure you can attest, I don't even want to compete. So I'm just like, I don't want to register, which gets you annoyed. You're like, no, you got to do the paperwork. I'm like, no, man, I just want to show my car. I don't want to compete.
I always thought you just don't read any emails. But, no.
Well, it's the other side of it is like, we can talk about it another time. I was actually told by like a really high-end person that I look up to, and it's like there's a certain point in your career where you need to stop competing and stop going to show. Like, you need to attend shows, of course, but you don't necessarily want to compete anymore, because if you happen to lose to somebody that's maybe because of judging, I'm not speaking to your show at all, because I have all the faith in your show, but there is events that you can go to, and I compete, and it's like his buddy picks his over yours because they're friends. Then he's running around, he'll tell the world that he beat you. So it's like you can't really risk that if it's your business. So like that's why now I only attend shows such as like where I trust the judging, I trust the process, and like those are the shows that I want to compete in. But those are shows where I'm actually competing against my peers. Well, I'm not going to compete in the show and shine. I'm not going to register. Those aren't the people that I'm trying to impress. I'm just trying to be there to participate. So I participate, be part of the sort of the whole scene.
Yeah.
And
a guy like you has a lot of knowledge to share, right? And I think that's the biggest benefit from guys who have been in the scene for a while, is to kind of like present like the good stuff, right? These podcasts are a great platform for that. But I will say, like judging is certainly the toughest part of the events for us.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that's pretty much like all the things I had.
You got to tell us about your upcoming season before we end all this.
Oh,
stuff.
true. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. No, we're super excited. There's a few dates to be announced. We're actually looking at toying with an idea like a pop-up city where we're going to try a new city. Just it like Hockeyville, Canada kind of thing, right? We might go to some small, tiny little, 100,000 population, 100,000 people, just run a driven there, right? And do a different one each year. So we're toying with some ideas, but ultimately the tour makes more sense this year. If you look, you can kind of like hit like a whole bunch of shows week to week. If you want to live the driven lifestyle, visit and see a lot of Canada, you can do it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because we had our trailer going like this and it was crazy, right? But now it's it's kind of like goes right across and then comes back and then goes back again, so it's easy, right? It's easy to follow, so we're not going across the country each week, but we're really excited. We got some really good partners this year. Registration is going to open up soon. eBay Motors has done really amazing things with like providing some coupons. So your registration is more than free if you utilize your eBay coupons, right?
Nice.
So I appreciate the opportunity here, guys. Really, like, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys are the guys who kind of get it, right? I wish all of the guys get it, and we understand that if they don't. Driven's not the show for everybody, and we respect it if you don't feel like it's a show for you, right? But we're gonna do our best to keep the majority of the people happy, and I love the opportunity to talk to you guys, and it's always a pleasure. Yeah, just thankful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on as well. Yeah, we're so glad you came up, and we're looking forward to hopefully in the future more coming on more shows and just chatting about car stuff and even showing up at your events. So it's gonna be fun.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in coming to Driven, even if you're in the States, because I know a lot of people in America, like in the States, come to Driven. But if you're interested, you can check out Driven. Is it driven.ca?
Drivenshow.ca.
Drivenshow.ca. So with that said,
or at Driven Show on all the platforms.
Okay.
So,
Yes. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give it a thumbs up, also check out Driven's podcast as well. We'll leave that in the description of the video as well. And we will see you next week.
Cool.
Bye.
Thank you.